Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
At Villeries Florist, we deliver the magic of flowers 7 days a week to the North Shore and South Shore in the New Orleans area. Whether it's for birthday parties, baby celebrations, Villeries provides colorful floral displays for all. With a store full of fresh-cut flowers, exotic tropical flowers, orchids, roses, and even fruit baskets, our goal is to make your vision a reality. Villeries Florist, proudly serving Louisiana since 1969. Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House has been shucking here since 1979. Located at 3117 21st Street in Metairie, Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House offers raw, fried, and grilled oysters, as well as a range of Cajun and Creole dishes. Enjoy a dozen with a smile.
Good evening, New Orleans, and welcome to another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Over the next hour, we'll talk a lot about the home teams, the Saints, the Pelicans. Hey, Pelicans are in the playoffs. Yeah, we'll lead with the Pelicans tonight. We have time. We'll talk some college baseball. Breaking down all sports. Sean Fazende of Fox 8 Sports doing a fantastic job over there. Sean, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us. Always good to have you, my friend. And we double dipping tonight with the Pelicans, but I mean, how can you ignore what's going on there? You guys are doing a great job over at Fox 8 Sports. We're getting ready to ramp up football, not that we were ever out of it. Yeah. With the draft right around the corner, free agency, you've been all over. You guys are sending Chris Hagan up to Portland. He's going to be there live for the Pels. Tell us about everything that's going on over at Fox 8 Sports. Y'all are all over it.
Yeah, we're all over it, and we're in the middle of college baseball season as well. We have our Final Play app where we really put all of our content up there, especially when it comes to Saints. I contribute a lot of content to that app as well. We have our normal newscast from 4, 5, 9, and 10. We have our Final Play show Sunday night at 10:30. I'll be at actually going to Tulane spring football game on Friday.
They moved it from
Friday night,
right.
so I'll be there as well. We'll have stuff on that. I'm counting down, not counting down, but as we get 2 weeks from, I guess if you're watching the live broadcast, 2 weeks from tonight, the draft gets here. I'm kind of counting down some possibilities, or taking a look at some possibilities for the Saints at 27. I'm sure you saw it. So we just kind of, it's that time of year where NBA playoffs, Major League Baseball starting if you're a baseball fan. I'm a Mets fan, the best record in baseball right now, so I'm happy. LSU baseball, Tulane baseball, draft. So a little bit of everything if you're a sports fan. I actually like this time of year, and the weather's great, so it's a fun time to be out.
And wait, we haven't even said anything about a golf tournament that's coming.
And oh, by the way, that's coming in a couple of weeks.
And
uniquely New Orleans, right?
Yeah. Well, the deal is between all the festivals that's going on, and of course you got Jazz Fest that weekend. You got the Strawberry Fest, if I'm not mistaken. No, that's this weekend. But you got the Jazz Festival, you got Zurich Class, you got the draft, and wait, maybe the Pelicans might still be alive in the playoffs. I mean, that happened a few years ago.
Yes.
And that's just tough for the local sports crews to be able to cover because you're in so many different directions.
There was a time, and I think it was the last time the Pelicans were in the playoffs. We had the draft, the Zurich, and it was the Hornets at the time. I believe the Hornets were playing the Nuggets, if I'm not mistaken, all on the same weekend. And it was crazy, but look, we got it all done. It was a fun weekend to be out there because, it was just all things going on, and hey, you rather have it than not have it, right? So, fun time of year, like I said, and hey, we'll be there every step of the way.
Good to have you. Doing a great job over at Fox 8. Pelicans end up 48-34. How about those Pels? 48 wins this season. Again, Boogie Cousins going down, and the All-Star break, and they had to come back and had to turn the season around. They're winners of 5 straight going into the postseason after a little bit of a hiccup where they went lost 4 straight. And look, I was all over them, and I'm not backing off. They deserve to be criticized. Anthony Davis deserved to be criticized for the way they were playing, but they have turned it around. Amazing. 24-17 at home, 24-17 on the road, identical records there. And, of course, they take on the Portland Trail Blazers. The Pelicans, as I mentioned, are the 6th seed. The Blazers are the 3rd seed. And these teams are very, very close in terms of talent. They'll have a game on Saturday against Portland, 9:30 tip. here in New Orleans, and then Tuesday in Portland. They come back to New Orleans on Thursday and Saturday, and then if necessary, Game 5 will be in Portland, Game 6 will be in New Orleans, Game 7 in Portland, all that if necessary. And let me tell you, big turnaround for this organization. A lot of jobs on the line. Jobs may still be on the line depending on what happens in this series. But you got to give a lot of credit to Alvin Gentry, even Dell Demps, and also the team for turning around after going in one direction with two bigs and having Boogie Cousins, and then flipping the script and playing more of a up-tempo Gentry-type offense, in which we thought we'd see when he came here, and turning the season around and making the playoffs.
Look, I tweeted out last night, because I was one of them. If you criticized Alvin Gentry and Dell Demps, rightfully so, I might add, when they were doing bad,
yes,
you have to praise them for keeping this team together, changing their style of play. But I think this change, as you said, kind of falls more in line with the Gentry style of play. They passed the ball more. They were 21-13 without DeMarcus Cousins. They were 27-21 with him. So you're talking about a situation where they changed on the fly. It worked. They caught fire. They had that 10-game win streak, and they closed the season with a 5-game winning streak. So if you're the type that criticized Alvin Gentry and wanted him out the door, well, now he kept the team together. He changed their style of play, got him in the playoffs with a decent matchup. Not as easy as everyone's going to make it out to be.
No, agreed.
But a decent matchup for them. I don't think they're going to get swept. And I think as long as you get 1, maybe 2 wins, I think everybody comes back next season.
You know, and I mentioned on the radio show today, anybody out there that and within the organization or in the fan base that's taken Portland lightly, you better think twice. You better go back and you better look at what Portland has done, who Portland is, the players they have, and how this matches up. I know that Jeff Duncan said on his radio show this morning that privately some of the Pelicans brass were saying this is the matchup they wanted. Be careful what you wish for. First of all, the old Rose Garden, Moda now Arena, tough place to win. They have traditionally been you go back to the Bill Walton days. I think it was Memorial Coliseum back then. Portland, the city of Portland, that whole state, they support that Trailblazer team like we support the Saints here.
Indeed.
I mean, it is literally, again, the only game in town for them, and they are all over Trailblazer basketball, and that arena is packed whether they are winning or losing.
And that's the truth, and it's one of those that's the only show, not just in town, but in the entire state in terms of professional sports. I know the big U of O and U of Oregon and Oregon State. It's pretty big up there as well, and I know that Nike's up there as well. But still, it's going to be a tough place to play. It's going to be a raucous crowd. You're going to play at a time you're not used to playing. You're playing in a part of the country you're not used to playing in. So, yeah, it's going to be a matchup where I think they match up well with if they can do certain things and if they get some good on-ball defense, especially from their backcourt. But it's going to be a challenge. Look, they want to play too, and they earned that 3 seed.
Oh, yes, they did.
So let's not kid ourselves into thinking this thing's going to be easy. I think what most people have sort of settled on is what I just said a few moments ago. As long as they don't go somewhere and get swept and where they're basically outclassed in a playoff series, which would happen against Golden State a couple of years ago, I think you view this year as a success. But if I'm the Pelicans, I'm playing with a ton of confidence. 5 straight wins going in, a 10-game win streak. Let's not stop here. We made the playoffs great. Let's pat ourselves on the back. Let's keep this thing going because there is a chance they can win this series.
Yeah. Oh, look, I don't think there's any doubt. I'm really kind of digesting this series. I didn't want to jump into it. If you ask me, unless I said on the radio show today, who wins, I say Portland in 7. But I'm going to
go. If they go 7 games, it's going to be close.
It really. I mean, that means they got the home court advantage, and they're going back to Portland for the defining game. But I think these teams are fairly close. It's going to be interesting to see, again, it's going to come down to rebounding and defense. I know everybody wants to talk about the offense. We'll get into that in a moment. But when you look at the Trailblazers, one of the better rebounding teams in the NBA, they hit the boards consistently. And then defensively, you got to have an answer for Lillard and McCollum. Again, that backcourt, maybe the most dynamic backcourt in the NBA. Both guys can score. Lillard cannot be stopped. And you're talking about a guy in Drew Holiday who is one of the best, if not the best, on-ball defender at the guard position in the NBA, and he has no answers for Damian Lillard. And then you start looking to say, okay, if you can shut Lillard down, what happens if McCollum gets hot? who do you put on him at that point? You know, Rondo is a defensive liability, but he's got to be on the court because he runs the offense. You maybe say Ian Clark. I mean, can you possibly move a small forward in Solomon Hill over there? You know, at that point, you don't know. But they got to have a plan for that backcourt, because that backcourt is traditionally has really hurt them. I mean, they can score from anywhere on the floor.
Yeah, well, if Damian Lillard's going to go off for 40, you better make him take 40 shots, because you want to make him earn it, right? And if he's taking 40 shots to get 40 points, then he's not getting everyone else involved. But and that's the game within the game, which makes a series so fun or so interesting, or so, if you're a coach, so challenging, because that might work in game one, that approach, but everybody adjusts and readjusts.
Absolutely.
You may tweak your rotation here, tweak your rotation there, and what sort of game does it evolve into? So that all plays out over a 7-game series. But I go back to the year they made the playoffs, Monty Williams' first year when they played the Lakers, and they won game 1 in L.A. You can split one.
Yes.
Portland, I like their chances for the rest of this series, because I like them when they come back home, and I think from a confidence standpoint that can really work wonders for a guy like Anthony Davis that's never won a playoff game. Right. And you got some guys with some experience like a Rajon Rondo, and I believe, was it Ian Clark that was on the national team?
Yes, no, he was on the Golden State team. Yes,
title team. So you have some guys with some experience, and I think they've done enough to kind of prepare themselves for this. Now you got to own the moment and take it over. And look, Anthony Davis, I don't care how hard it is, you got to be Anthony Davis, a superstar.
You got to be MVP.
You got to be the MVP. That's what the playoffs are all about.
I agree, and that's one of the things I'm going to be looking for, Sean, because Nurkic is a physical player.
Guy.
Let me tell you something. He leans on Davis. He pushes Davis. He's the whole time, and we've seen this in other matchups. Now, when Boogie Cousins was on the floor, he could neutralize him because, again, you're not moving Boogie Cousins. But Anthony Davis is a different type of player, even with the added muscle that he's put on since he's come to New Orleans. Look, the NBA playoffs are physical. The referees swallow the whistle. It is a grinded half-court game. You know, this expecting to score 110, 120. Forget about it in the playoffs. It's rare. It's not going to happen. And then on the flip side, I got a question. I think this is the biggest question on this team going into the playoffs. Are they physical enough to win in the playoffs? Do they have the physicality to do it? And look, they're going up against a team that you say, well, they're not that deep. But they do hit the boards, and they are physical between Ed Davis and Mo Harkless at the small forward position and the power forward position. They hit the boards consistently. Davis is a rebounding machine. If you do not put a body on him, he will hit the boards constantly. So this is going to be a challenge. And then you throw in Shabazz Napier and Evan Turner. I mean, that's the extent of their rotation. But they're not bad players. But look, they're led by that backcourt. But to me, the physicality is what it's going to come to. This team has been a soft team without Boogie Cousins on the floor. Can they muster up and be physical against a Portland team that's going to try to, again, be as physical as they can with them, especially with Anthony Davis?
Yeah, and look, it's a fair question. I don't think it's impossible for them to
I don't think it is
to get physical, and but you want to stay true to who you are, and what they've become is a pass the basketball team. On-ball defenders, especially on that backcourt. So that's why I feel like the people that say this is a good matchup, I understand why they're saying that, because the strength on strength is there. So it's not like a strength on weakness. There's a lot of strength on strength, so that I think the Pelicans match up well. So, and I also am curious, because look, I think DeMarcus Cousins is coming back, and I think Del Dim said as much. I read the Will Guillory article or the Q&A. I think it's pretty much, he said it without saying that DeMarcus is coming back. However, let's say you catch fire in these playoffs, and you're shooting the ball, and you're moving the ball, and all of a sudden you take this series in 6, or you take this series in 7, and you do well in the next round of the playoffs. I mean, I'm very curious how that works, because do you always have to say, well, will we have done this with Boogie? Or if you really get out-muscled, then it's a glaring hole of, okay, we definitely need Boogie Cousins back.
Look, no matter what, Sean, whether they bring back Boogie Cousins or not, they got to get more physical at the center position. There's no doubt about it. Emeka Okafor is a stopgap here. I'm going to be interested to see how much time he gets in this series, and just to be able to keep Nurkic off of Anthony Davis for the full 48 minutes. But they're in a tough spot. You know, because of some bad moves that they made, under the Del Demps era, they don't have a lot of money to spend under the cap. And because of the way the cap is set up in the NBA, you can sign your own players to big deals as long as you don't go over the luxury tax threshold. So you can go over the salary cap to sign your own. if they don't sign Boogie Cousins, they've only got about $10 million to spend. You know, the big thing is at this point, Mirotic has come in, and he has been on fire shooting the ball. And again, he's a physical player, can go in, rebound. You know, he's a better version of Peja Stojakovic, because Peja never went to the boards. He rarely went inside. Mirotic will.
And I think he's a key. I really do, because he's got some flexibility. He can stroke it from outside as well. Right. He's got some, and I don't think he gets enough credit for his defense, or at least his willingness to play defense and bang at the boards underneath. So I think he's key in this series because of his size, because of his flexibility. And if all of a sudden a guy like him is hot from the outside, you may be able to get some decent matchups underneath with a guy like Anthony Davis. So that's why all these little subplots. I mean, and each game takes on its own storyline, takes on its own sort of development. And if you the way you play game one may not be the way you play game two.
Well, I mean, again, and then it comes down to we're going to see the true mettle of this coaching staff.
Exactly.
Because by game two, look, they already know. They already know your plays. They already know what the call is. They were mentioning on the broadcast last night that Rondo in one playoff series was actually telling the opposing player, you're going the wrong way. Okay, you should be here. Because, again, he is a cerebral player. You look at a guy like that, well, I mean, that's the coaching staff. By the time you get to game two, game three, you know the sets, you know what they're running, you know they're calling before, and you're going to try to stop guys from getting to their spot. So, again, it's the ability to adjust on the fly, to adjust off what the other team is doing the adjustment. And look, the main thing that's got them where they are today, ball movement, unselfishness, okay? Again, being the unselfish, going and finally hitting the boards and playing defense. Now, it helps to knock down the shots like they've been doing, but they're playing basketball the right way. We saw the same thing during the 10-game winning streak, and they've recaptured that over the last 5 games. Look, they may not be able to play the up-tempo style that they're used to playing and scoring a lot of points, but if they can get it into an up-tempo game, it definitely goes into their favor.
And even if you have to play a methodical half-court game, doesn't mean you can't pass it.
No.
And what's the magic number? 23 assists? So there was a number Alvin Gentry handed out. If they go over the 23 or 24 assist mark, they usually win the game. That means they're moving the ball and they're knocking down open shots. So that's why this is a great matchup. I really think it's not going to be easy. It's not supposed to be. But I like where the Pelicans stand, going in and going out west, facing the Portland team. And I think the basketball really needed this. It's been kind of an uneven year. I know there's been some talk of the fan attendance. I understand, but it has been kind of a weird year with the injuries and losing streaks and then win streaks and then losing streaks. So it's been. I just think this was good for basketball. It's been a nice run here with the Saints and then the Pelicans and the Kentucky Derby. So it's been sort of I was telling you before the show. I mean, there's just this seems so much more relaxed. The brass over there over on Airline Drive. So. I'm just ready to see how it goes in the playoffs, and it's fun to have a little bit of. I've always loved the NBA playoffs, but to watch it with a team that you cover, I think it's interesting.
Look, it's like the NCAA tournament. When a Louisiana team is not in there that you can root for, you're going to watch the tournament, but there's a little bit of a void there, and there's a void now. There has been a void in the NBA playoffs with the Pelicans just not being that good. It will be, and getting back to Boogie Cousins for a moment, it will be interesting to see how this thing goes, because look. There's no doubt in the playoffs, right now, as you start the playoffs, Boogie Cousins would make a huge difference in a half court, in a physical type game, and that's what the playoffs are. But you cannot discount the type of ball movement and the sharing of the basketball and the getting back on defense and the little things that you have to do to win. And again, the explosion of Anthony Davis in terms of his game without having Boogie Cousins on the floor, whether he had to or not. Boogie comes back, he's got to be a different Boogie. And he's got to be a guy that ultimately you let the guards run. You run the offense through the guards. Now, it'll be interesting to see, ultimately, if Rajon Rondo comes back, I would think he would want to come back, depending on how this thing goes. They got him with $3.3 million this year. Chicago's paying the other $10 million of his salary on the buyout. He won't come cheap to the Pelicans, even at his advanced age. So there are a lot of things to start thinking about after the season is over, but whatever happens going forward, there's going to have to be some fine-tuning and adjustment to again, Boogie's game if he comes back, if he wants to win, because, look, when you have one of the best players at their position, and he is one of the best players at his position, you're in a situation where, especially getting into the playoffs, You got two of those guys, you got a really good chance of winning. That's one reason why I didn't want to see Oklahoma City. Everybody wanted to talk about OKC, but when you look at that three-headed monster and you're going to put those guys in the playoffs, it's a different level of a game when you get into the NBA playoffs.
There it is. And look, that's why I think Cousins is coming back. I mean, because AD wants him. You know,
sure.
Look, he's coming back. I think
the question is for how much.
How much?
And how do you structure the deal?
And these playoffs will be a telltale sign of, okay, if it's clear they're out physical, if it's clear they're kind of getting not just beat, maybe bullied a little bit, you need your enforcer back. You need your guy. But if it's a 7-game series, they win or lose, and they're knocking down the shot, and you want a guy like Cousins, but maybe he's got to tweak a little bit his game to where everybody kind of blends in and you know, you advance further into the playoffs next year. So I think not having him sort of sets up sort of his, I don't use the word value, but his sort of identity when he comes back next season and playing. Because they were 27-21 with him, 21-13 without him. So what and what. And even with him, it almost felt like right when he got hurt was right when they finally figured it out.
I agree.
It took him a while to really
did.
figure it out. So this will sort of reshuffle the deck a little bit and sort of kind of reinsert, okay, when he comes back, we want him to be this style, or we want him to be this way because of what happened in the playoffs.
Right. Well, and I think what's interesting as you talk about today, the evolution of Anthony Davis and Rajon Rondo above the rim. Reminds you a little bit of the old Crest City connection with Tyson Chandler and Chris Paul. I mean, look, first of all, an incredible passer. Rondo sees the floor like no other. But now they've got that little two-man game going, and they've been devastating around the rim. You know, that's one of the things that you could see. Maybe you get Nurkic in foul trouble early. They don't have an answer behind him, really, okay? Not anybody that can really stay with Davis or anybody in that front court. That'll be one of the interesting keys. And I'll tell you another key, Sean. Solomon Hill. To me, Solomon Hill is going to be a key to this series. He's a physical player. He can play defense. He can't hit the broadside of a bomb with his shot. I don't even want to hear it. I've been hearing it for 2 years. He got one series in Indiana where he hit a few threes. Everybody thinks he's a three-point shooter. He's not. He can't shoot. But he can play defense and he can rebound. And they need his physicality in this game. I think he'll be one of the keys if they can beat Portland.
Yeah, and he could be one of those guys that does kind of the blue-collar stats.
Yes.
The rebounds, offensive rebounds, 50-50 balls, the type of defense where it may not result in a steal, but it's a result in an errant pass. It forces an errant shot and, you know, an empty possession. So, yeah, I totally agree with you there. He's one of those kind of under-the-radar players that I think can really have an impact on this series.
Right, and of course, we talked a little bit about Drew Holiday. You know, not only does he, you got to hope that he doesn't wear down because he's going to have to be able to stop Damian Lillard. When Lillard's out, if McCollum's in, they're probably going to move him over there to try to stop him. You know, that will take its toll on you offensively when you're putting out so much energy on the defensive end. You know, he's still got to be able to be a double-figure scorer, I dare say in the 20s. If Mirotic is not scoring, he's got to pick it up.
I think that's where Mirotic has to come in and take up some of the scoring, especially if you know what you're going to ask of Drew Holiday. That is stop Lillard, stop McCollum. So I think that's why I go back to Nico. He has got to be what he's been since he shaved. I mean, we all shaved. We all shaved today.
That's why I shaved.
I shaved today as well. So, look, I think he's got to be the guy that puts in 22, 23, knock down a couple threes, 7, 8 boards, that sort of night. So,
Sean, what you got on the series? You know, again, if you had to ask me today, I'd say Portland in 7, but it would not shock me that the Pelicans could win in 6.
I want to say Pelicans. I'm not there yet. I'm probably leaning more towards you right now. But I do think a 7-game series would tell us a lot as far as the direction of basketball in this city and that organization, the trajectory that they're on, the path that they're taking. I think you don't want to lose a series, but if it were to end in 7 and they weren't the winning team, I think you walk away from the season viewing it as a success. You get swept in 4, forget about it. Right. I'd like to see them win at least 2 games in this series, but I like I said, I think this team can win this series in advance to play Golden State.
I want to peel back the layers a bit on the future of the front office and the coaching staff because, again, when you look at Dell Demps, he's been here 6 years. Again, it has not been a good 6 years at all. Some would say, and me being one, the leader of the pack here, they treat the basketball team like a football team. You don't see the type of patience that you've seen with NBA general managers and coaches that you've seen in New Orleans in other NBA cities. You don't. I mean, if you don't win, there's a quick turnaround. If ultimately they are retained, the question is, how long do you keep them? Both contracts are up. Do you give them a 2-year deal? Do you give them a 3-year deal? Do you give them a 5-year deal? I want to set the premise here. Anthony Davis has 3 years left on his deal, 2 years and a player option. Can you walk away at the end of this tenure with Anthony Davis if he ultimately ends up somewhere else for the really the best years of his career that are going to be in front of him? Could you look back on this and say that Dell Demps was the general manager of the New Orleans Pelicans the entire time Anthony Davis was here, and again without tremendous success? And I think that's something the organization is going to have to weigh going forward. If you're going to cut bait, you cut bait this year. If you don't, then again, how much raw rope do you give Dell Demps to be able to build this team? And can you literally look back on this in 2 years if he opts out on that third year and says, look, I'm going to go elsewhere because I want to win a title, and say, man, we've had Dell Demps as general manager for the whole 6 years, or in this case, the whole 8 years that Anthony Davis has been in New Orleans.
Great question. And I was thinking that the other day. What kind of contract do you give them? I mean,
it's tough.
Do you give them a 2-year deal? Does that really express any sort of confidence in your coaching staff?
There's no confidence in 2 years.
5 year, I think, is too long. I think probably settling in on a 3-year deal. I think that's pretty fair, because if there was a situation where you had to step in, you're not killing yourself with an insane amount of a buyout. Because, like, I've always been, look at the Benson track record, okay? You had Jim Mora, 11 years. You had now Mike Ditka was 3. That was
Right.
the outlier. But you had Hazlitt 7 years, and now Peyton, and Mickey Loomis has been there for a long period of time. Unless they have to step in, because they do not like paying people not to work.
I agree.
It's always been that way.
Right.
If you're under contract, you're gonna work out the rest of your contract. It's always been that way, unless something devastating happens, like a Mike Ditka situation. So that's why I think if you're looking at it, the most reasonable way to go forward with Dell Demps and Alvin Gentry probably would be a 3-year deal. I mean, and look, when it comes to Anthony Davis, it's just a matter of look. And there's also that sort of outlier of, okay, what else is available? Is there an upgrade from these two guys in Gentry and Demps? Maybe. Yeah, we'll see.
Well, or a new voice, or a new direction. Again, a new plan. Because you got to wonder about if the plan has not worked up to this point. And this is on the fly here, man, okay? I mean, it's a desperate move to get Boogie Cousins. Whether it worked or not is still up in the air. We looked like it was working before he was injured, but we don't know if that would have been sustained. The Mirotić deal is a great deal. It is a job-saving deal.
Season saver,
okay?
Really.
And there's no doubt, okay? But, again, you had the Omer Ashik contract that was involved in that. I've said on my radio show, hey, there's not a person that watches the NBA that wouldn't look around and say, at this point, the way Mirotić is playing, he's not worth a #1 pick. That's not in the lottery. And that's exactly what they've given up for him. And you've gotten rid of that albatross contract of Ashik. But again, you were dealing against yourself when you gave him that albatross contract, and it stagnated the franchise for multiple years. So do you worry about the sins of the past? Is it a clean slate going forward? Because now you see there's a little bit of a direction, and there's some good deals that have been made over the last couple of years. Do you say he was snake bit because of the injuries? Is that an excuse, Sean?
I feel like that's come up every single year. But I feel like other organizations have gotten over injuries. If for no other reason, you're unlucky then. You can only play that card for so long.
I agree.
If they would have missed the playoffs this year, regardless of injury, even with Boogie Cousins going out, I think he would have been gone. So both guys, obviously, because if you get rid of Dell, you're probably going to get a new guy that wants his own head coach. So I think that excuse has probably hit his expiration date.
I would agree. And then let's take Alvin Gentry. He comes in with one direction he wants to go, but he doesn't have the players to play the system that he had. Now, he did. But Ryan Anderson was hurt, Eric Gordon was hurt, Drew Holiday was hurt. I mean, the players that the vision he had for this team, which is how they're playing now, okay, that style now, he couldn't do. Now all of a sudden they go in a different direction with the two bigs. He changes on the fly to what he has known his whole career, and all of a sudden now this team is playing very, very well and it's fun basketball. Does he get a reprieve? Or as you mentioned, which I agree with you, man, you being a new general manager, you got to let him have the opportunity to pick his coach.
I don't think there's any doubt. If the GM goes, it's almost certain that the head coach would go. But look, I think it's all a moot point at this point because I think both guys are coming back because I think they're going to win at least 2 games in this series. But look, if they get swept off the floor, then you got to reevaluate some things because if you get swept by Portland, a team you matched up well with, look, Monty Williams got fired after going to the playoffs. So it could happen.
Oh, yes.
So let's not forget about that.
That was a power struggle, and Demps won the power struggle. The question is, again, has he done enough to keep his job, even when we've seen the success? Yeah, I will say one more thing to the fan base. You need to watch the Portland fan base, okay? they're rabid like we are for the Saints, and you're going to see a real home court advantage at the Moda Center, the old Rose Garden up in Portland, as they head up there for 2 games, and then of course, hopefully not more, but two games up there. They support this team. It will be loud. We got to match that intensity here in New Orleans.
I agree. And look, no excuses now.
No.
Playoffs are here. You got your wins. You got your winning team, a team that's playing well. They're on fire right now. They didn't backdoor their way in. They earned their spot.
Every bit of it.
It's time.
We'll shift gears when we come back. Sean Fazende of Fox 8 Sports is our guest. You're watching Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Stay tuned for a couple words from our underwriters, and we'll talk some Saints on the way back. Don't go anywhere.
Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration has been family-owned and operated since 1989. Burkhart has energy-efficient solutions and offers brands such as Mitsubishi ductless AC units and Amana, the only manufacturer with a lifetime unit replacement warranty. Burkhart's offers maintenance bundle packages that include servicing your AC, generator, and tankless water heater. For more information on the services Burkhart's provides, visit acpromise.com. Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration, providing comfort for life.
Located at 3701 Iberville Street in Mid-City is Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Open 7 days a week, Katie's offers daily specials for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Serving New Orleans cuisine such as fried shrimp platters, grilled redfish, and a fully stocked bar. And don't forget about our expanded event seating and local entertainment. Featured on the Best of Food Network's diners, drive-ins, and dives, Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Amco Fence, locally owned and operated since 1976. Fully licensed and insured and a member of the BBB, Amco serves both residential and commercial customers. If you're looking to repair, replace, or install a fence for security or aesthetic reasons, Amco Fence supplies wooden, metal, chain link, vinyl, and ornamental or automatic gates. Amco aims to satisfy your fencing needs. Amco Fence, 504-468-9559 or amcofencecompany.com.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Tonight, Sean Fazende of Fox 8 Sports is on our panel. Let's shift gears to the Saints after getting into the Pelicans. Pass rusher, tight end, wide receiver. Thus far, it looks like Sean Payton is making good on what he normally does, where he tries to fill needs in free agency and then has the ability to be very, very flexible on draft day. Let's take Cam Meredith first. He signed an offer sheet with the Saints last week. The Chicago Bears had 5 days to match. They did not match. 2 years, $9.6 million, $5.4 million guaranteed. It's the entire 2017 season with an ACL and MCL tears. Sean, I know you've done the film study. I know you broke him down. Talk about him as a player. Talk about the Saints' vision for Cam Meredith.
Pretty simple, and I don't want to overstate this, but if he's healthy, and that's a big if, but if he's healthy, and hopefully the Saints have done their due diligence, he'll be the best signing of this free agent class. You can see the vision immediately when you watch him on film. When you watch him on film, 2 words come out: Marcus Colston. Okay, he is a big possession receiver. You don't hear that term much anymore. No, possession receiver, right. You really don't. It used to be a term all the time back in the day. He is 6'3", 6'4". You watch him with the Bears. He can line up outside, but he does his damage in the slot. Everything is an in-breaking route. He had a couple out-breaking routes, but from the slot, the way he can get down the seam, the way he can use his body to kind of, he's maybe a little faster than Marcus Colston was. But immediately, when I watched him, I saw 2 plays, and I said, Marcus Colston. I went back and watched a few more games. Marcus Colston. He's not Marcus Colston yet, but he's got that comparison, and you can just feel Sean Payton writing the plays up right now, getting down the seam, along with a guy like Ben Watson who can do it as well. Maybe not quite as much as he did back in years past, but a big slot wide receiver, something they really have not had. They wanted Brandon Coleman to be that guy. Yes. He never really was that guy. Cameron Meredith can be that guy. The question is he 100% healthy? Because if he is, mark my words, he'll be the best free agent signing of this class.
How does he work with a guy like Michael Thomas? How does he help Michael Thomas's game?
I just think he's a guy that you got to account for over the middle of the field, in between the hashes. And Michael Thomas is a guy that can run every route on the route tree effectively, and he's very physical. So I think those two, good luck cornerbacks if you want to play press man, because they can really I mean, they can really bully some smaller corners. So I think his presence will help, maybe less safety help over the top. Or if you do roll safety help over the top of Michael Thomas, you better be careful because Cameron Meredith can run down that seam or hit a post from the slot. So I just think he adds a dimension that they have not had since Marcus Colston. And like I told you, like, the All-22 is available to everybody, so just check it out. I mean, you watch him play, and he is a Marcus Colston clone.
25 years old, so he's in his prime. The question is, again, can he come back from look at ACL and MCL injuries. It'll be a year off, so you would think he would be able to come back. The question is, will he be ready for OTAs? Will he be ready for camp? Now, he says he's going to San Diego to work out with Breeze, which is what a lot of receivers do, which is a smart move on his part. Again, can he be ready to go day one?
Look, get him back to training camp. You can't be here for OTAs. I mean, get in the meeting room and learn the offense, and maybe you could do some things. But while it would be nice to get him back for OTAs, if you can't be here, so be it. But if you're back for training camp, back for the season, that's really all that matters. It was the ACL and MCL tear, so look, it's a little more of a rugged recovery because those ACLs, if it's clean enough, you can get back in 6 months. But so be it. A little extra time. But, look, the Saints have made mistakes in the past in terms of diagnosing injuries. You would hope with the new regime kind of watching this thing now that they have a better handle on those type of things. And they offered him a contract that shows somewhat confidence for a guy coming off an ACL tear. 2 years, $10 million is not bad on both sides. That's a good deal for him. It's a good deal for the Saints. So, and look, what the Saints are going to ask him to do, he's not necessarily going to be asked to be a quote-unquote explosive player. He's going to be a downfield, use-your-size type player. Just imagine the Marcus Colston running that seam route in the red zone, jumping up, back shoulder, kind of boxing his defender out. Yes. So I think it's a great fit if he's healthy. And look, players have come back from this before, so hopefully that is the case and he's ready to go by. Look, you want training camp, but if not, definitely by opening day.
What do you think happens with Willie Snead now?
I don't know. I can't make heads or tails of Willie Snead because I honestly think if they go receiver in the draft, it's going to be a Willie Snead type player. You got your bigger slot possession, a smaller slot because you got your speed guy in Ginn. I think you can last with him
another year. He's got a couple more years, maybe.
1 or 2 years. It's either speed or slot. It's not going to be a big guy. So Willie Snead, to me, I know he had a visit to Baltimore. The tender offer is there. He hasn't signed it yet.
Right.
So
and that deadline's coming.
I can't put my finger on when the exact deadline is, but
it's before the draft.
Yeah, so that's got to happen soon. So, he's a player that even if they draft a guy that can do the things he can do, if nothing else, he's going to have to compete for that spot regardless of whatever contract he signs. So, I think Willie Snead's future is somewhat in doubt. He has a contract offer. It's a 1 year, $1.9 million tender offer, but it is something. So. We'll see what Willie Snead. Players have bounced back from bad years in the past. Something was wrong with him mentally last year. He just was not the same player.
You know what's interesting? If you just look at the theme of free agency, and we talked about it on this show. We talked about it on the radio show as well. The coaching staff, the general manager, being very familiar with the players that they've signed, guys that have either been here in New Orleans or they've had coaches that have coached that particular player. In this case, Curtis Johnson, Coach Meredith. Obviously, Ben Watson has been here. They knew Demario Davis. By the way, the Saints' ex-running back coach was up with the New York Jets, so that there's a tie-in up there. You go through every player that they brought in. Jermon Bushrod was a former Saint.
Ben Watson.
There are some ties there, and bringing back guys they know are good locker room guys, but guys that are familiar with the Peyton system, and that's one of the things I find kind of interesting about this particular free agency period as opposed to others.
All complimentary type players.
Yes.
I don't really expect any of these guys to be stars per se. I mean, one could certainly surprise us.
They knew Coleman from playing against him at Carolina.
Exactly. And boy, I mean, given what the safety market has become, they probably maybe overpaid a little bit for Curtis Coleman. Huh? I mean, look, you got to strike while the iron's hot, obviously, but still, given what the safety market has become, wow. But to me, it's more of not only who they signed, not only for the price that they signed them at, it's what they haven't done. They haven't cut anybody yet.
Right.
They haven't cut a player.
Say it again, because you mentioned that the other day on your broadcast. They haven't cut a player yet. So to me, I can't think of a year where they haven't gone in and really gutted some players that were either too old, too expensive, not living up to the contract. They haven't done it yet. Not even a guy like Fleener still on the roster. Right.
Or even a guy like I don't want to say he's on the pot seat, but a guy like Nate Stupar who's coming off of a torn ACL at a loaded position. I mean, they believe this core has. It's the first time I can recall them not subtracting any players that were already under contract.
Kind of reminds you, bro, as they were making the run to the Super Bowl, where they felt like they had a really good group and they didn't want to let any of those players out on the open market or cut them. And look, at that time, when you cut a player from the Saints team, he was heading somewhere else. There's no doubt about that. I did not mention Patrick Robinson, another guy that, again, they're very, very familiar with. But they were very, very methodical in who they went after, how much they were going to pay, and again, what positions they were going to fill. And they stayed away from the overpriced veterans that maybe could have made a heck of a difference. Look, Sue would have been an incredible addition in the middle of that defense. But again, you've got the off the court, you've got the off the field baggage, you got the locker room, everything else involved in that. And then Jimmy Graham, you feel like there maybe was no hard feelings, but still $10 million a year. God bless you, Green Bay, you can have it.
Pre-Jeff Ireland, I think Jimmy Graham's the same. Pre-Jeff Ireland, I think Ndamukong Suh's the same. There is something with that Ireland-Peyton relationship. And I go back to this. The success of last offseason was an epiphany for Sean Payton. You build superstars through the draft.
Yes.
It's rare you get a Drew Brees or you sign a free agent star. It's you build them through the draft, you pay your own guys the big money. That's how it goes. And because they set that fine line, and last year they had A.J. Klein was 3 years, $15 million. It was nice, fair deals, not overpaying for anyone. And look, we've seen Sean Payton in the past where he just gets impulsive and he just wants that guy and he goes all in.
Yep.
Jimmy Graham would have been a perfect example of that pre-Jeff Ireland, and certainly Ndamukong Suh, because that's a guy a little older, to me a little past his prime, a little still effective, but it would have been the perfect example of Sean Payton being impulsive. It didn't happen. So I think there's a new philosophy out there on airline driving, and quite frankly, it's the right philosophy. You build through the draft.
They have not been able to get a pass rusher, and there's a premium there. Sean, the question is at this point, what do they do? Now, if they can't get one in the draft, you can always do what you were thinking about doing with Sue and get yourself a big tackle to play next to Sheldon Rankins. That's a possibility. What do you think happens there? Because that's the only real must they have not filled up to this point.
Well, and here's I know Sean Payton called that a must, but, and I've said this before, poll 32 teams in the NFL right now. I guarantee you at least 25 of them have the top of their list pass rusher, because it's easy to get one. It's hard to get two.
Yes.
Tell me a team that's got two dynamic pass rushers right now. It's hard because the position, for whatever reason, they're just not churning them out the way they used to. And a lot of those guys, that body type is playing tight end now. Yeah. So it's hard. But I as much as I would like to see them add a healthy, young defensive end pass rusher to go complement Cam Jordan, Alex Okafor, Trey Hendrickson, Al-Qadim Muhammad, maybe you get a mid-round guy. You still got Kikaha, although he may not make the team. I mean, there's teams with worse positions than you at that position. True. So while you want to get a pass rusher, if you can get an elite pass rusher from the interior, to me that's just as good. Yeah. To me, that's just as good.
And that's what Sheldon Rankins is supposed to be.
He's supposed to be
but he hasn't been able to do that because you haven't been able to keep they've been getting double teamed on the inside.
Well, and they kicked them outside last year, which to me was a mistake. I understand the thought process, but that should have been squashed after the first game.
Agreed.
So I think another athletic 3 technique could certainly work in that regard as well.
I agree with you. Look, what was one of the things they tried to do this year when they brought Demario Davis in? They want to be able to stop the run, right? They want an athletic linebacker that's a sure tackler. Well, stopping the run starts up front. And if you can get, again, a big tackle that can come in, that can stop the double teams on Rankins, and as a caveat, continue to be able to be a guy that can stuff the run for you, again, to me, that it's not maybe as good as a pass rusher, but considering the lack of pass rushers out there, that might be your next best option.
And it seems to be a pretty good year for D tackles.
Yes.
It's not a good year for pass rushers. And look, you got a guy like Taven Bryan who can flex out the defensive end in certain situations. He's a very good off the snap, very quick. People need to cool it with the J.J. Watt comparisons, but still, I think I can understand he's got some quickness off the snap. So there's certainly players, and then a guy like David Onyemata, can he develop into a run stuffing type, which I think he's got the body type for?
Yes, he does.
I think that can happen. So there's some certain things. They're in a lot better position defensively this year than in years past, to the point where, honestly, the only rookie position that I could see a guy coming in and taking a starting job right away is cornerback opposite of Marshawn Lattimore. Other than that, I don't know if a rookie comes in and starts at any position on defense right now.
And I'll be interested to see if they go in that direction once again. You know, Sean, we've talked about it on the show previously. We talked about it on the radio show. It's getting close now. Is it a possibility that they just say, you know what, we feel like we're pretty good at every position, and the depth of the draft is not that great. We're going to put all our chips in the middle of the table. We're going to go get us a quarterback. Do you think that's a real possibility? We're giving up a number one this year, swapping number ones this year, get up next year's number one, maybe having to give up a 3 this year, maybe having to give up, you know, some of those multiple picks down the line, depending on what the chart says in terms of how far you got to go up. And if you do think they're going to do that, who do you think would be their target?
First off, the target's Baker Mayfield. That's who I think.
Agreed.
He is Sean Payton. They're the same guy. Sean Payton as a quarterback would be Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield as a head coach would be Sean Payton. I guarantee you this, that thought process is inside Airline Drive right now. The problem is you got teams like New England, you got teams like Buffalo, you got teams like Arizona that are all in a similar situation and maybe have a little bit more of a desperate need for that quarterback and more ammunition to get up. So I think the Saints would absolutely do it if it becomes available. My fear is a team like Buffalo moving up, and they just have too good of a package to offer a team. But the key is the New York Giants. That is the key, because if they stay put and they do not draft a quarterback, and for Cleveland, who is probably not going to trade back because they've traded back so many, they got so many draft picks, they got to pick some of these guys eventually. Then you get to 5, and you got Denver, and there's 2 quarterbacks available, and they coach both Josh Allen and Baker Mayfield at the Senior Bowl. So we'll see whatever quarterback's available. So one would be guaranteed to get out of the top 5. Indianapolis is not picking one. Is it Tampa's probably not picking one? And then you get to 8. You got the Chicago Bears, a team that needs draft picks and a team that's got a relationship with Sean Payton.
Yes.
So if it's going to happen, that's where it's going to happen.
What would you do, Sean? You study it more than anybody else, as much as anybody else. What would you do?
I'd do it. Here's why. You've got 5 day 3 picks, okay? The likelihood of them using all those picks is probably not going to happen. So they're probably going to trade up at some point with those 5 to get you maybe a couple of day 2 picks, okay? So you have that ammunition in the middle of the draft if you really wanted to do it, okay? And like you said, name a desperate hole right now. It doesn't exist. And do you really want to wait till you have to have a quarterback? Wouldn't you rather have that guy ready to go? I'm not buying a Taysom Hill thing. He may have a great preseason. God knows we're all going to be watching him because of everything Sean Payton said, but I'm not buying him as the successor to Drew Brees. There's one thing to have be a nice story and be a nice preseason quarterback and run down on kickoffs, but it's another thing to be the successor to the greatest player to ever put on the black and gold. So where are your other needs? And I think this is key. I think Drew Brees is finally ready to welcome his successor.
Okay.
I think he's ready this year to welcome that player. Baker Mayfield from Austin, Texas quarterback. And make no mistake about it, Drew Brees is not outwardly cocky, but he's got some confidence inside.
And he's got a chip on his shoulder,
the chip
just like Mayfield.
New Orleans.
Yes.
So I think if it were me, yes, I've seen a lot of well-respected colleagues who I call friends of mine say that they shouldn't do it. I disagree, because you're never going to be in a more fortunate position in terms of the rest of your roster to do it than now.
Yeah, let's go to the phone lines. 866-3200. Sean Fazende is with us on the program tonight. Feel free to ask about anything. If you want Pelican questions, we got that for you, Saints. We even talk some college baseball if you'd like. JP is in Houma. JP, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. Hey, JP.
Thank you for having me on the show.
Thank you.
With regards to the draft, 3 prospects I'd like to get Sean's take on. Taven Bryan from Florida, Breland Speaks from Ole Miss, and wide receiver Dylan Cantrell from Texas Tech.
Got it. Thank you.
Taven Bryan, quickness off the snap. Love it. When I first saw it, I was like, whoa, I didn't remember him in the LSU Florida game, but my goodness, he's got some quickness off the snap. Was it Breland
Speaks?
Decent player, can play the edge. I like the way in a draft not deep at that position. I think it's certainly somebody the Saints could take a look at. I'm not sure where he's going to fall in terms of what round, or it might fall in that gap between 1 and 3. And what was the third one? I'm sorry.
Cantrell.
Cantrell, not completely familiar with that wide receiver right now, but I think if they go wide receiver, I think it's going to be a slot guy. I really do.
So is Kirk the guy?
Kirk could be the guy.
I
think they can develop a guy in the later rounds. And by the way, can I correct myself? It's not 5 day 3 picks. It's 6.
Okay.
6 day 3 picks. 6
right.
from 4 to 7. I like a guy like Trey Quinn, to be honest with you, at that position.
Yeah. Well, there you go. For a former Tiger,
a slot receiver. did very well with a star receiver next to him. You saw what happened.
Yes.
He'll have that with the Saints.
Yeah. Greg is in Houma. Greg, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. Hey, Greg.
Hey, guys. I got two quick questions.
Sure.
What's the story on Darrell from LSU, and how does he fit in with the Saints? And the second question for Sean is, do you see a veteran position being cut based upon a draft pick? And I'll hang up and listen.
Happens all the time, absolutely. I think it could happen at linebacker. I mean, they got like 20 on the roster right now. So,
well, they need it at times.
Look, I think it could happen at linebacker. We talk about a guy like Stupar, Te'o. They signed Demario Davis. I mean, they're pretty loaded at that position. If they draft a linebacker, I could see a veteran getting squeezed. It could happen at the cornerback position. A guy like P.J. Williams could get squeezed if they draft another cornerback. All of that will be determined, though, on the field. Did you have another question?
Trayvon Darrell.
Trayvon Darrell's got to look. They have a need at wide receiver. There's no doubt about that. But he's going to have to battle his way to get on the roster. It's not going to be easy for him. I thought he had his moments last year in the preseason, but he spent most of the year in the practice squad.
Well, and that's a good thing because he's learned the system now. You can be relaxed. It's going to be your second year of OTA, second training camp. You've been in an NFL weight room. You've been under Breeze. You've had a chance to be able to catch the football from him, learn from the receivers in the wide receiver. And wait a minute, Curtis Johnson is a heck of a wide receiver coach.
Very hands-on. You got to.
Okay.
If you're not ready to play with Curtis Johnson, you're not going to get ready to play.
I mean, couldn't catch a cold, inconsistent. And then you look at him, again, what hurt him more than anything else, again, the fumbles, but he became a pretty good blocker, still a little bit inconsistent in terms of catching the ball. He was better. He was not even close to the receiver coming out of Rutgers that he's leaving New Orleans under Curtis Johnson. Curtis Johnson's done a great job.
Much better player, more confident player. He just isn't quite the player that his size would lead you to believe him to be. And I think that was the biggest issue.
He plays smaller than his size.
He plays 5'11" when he's 6'6". I mean, you see that guy walk off the bus. I want him on my team immediately, but on the field, it's
devastating blocker.
But a great blocker.
You've pointed it out in your film breakdown.
Studies, one of the best blocking wide receivers, maybe in the entire NFL.
And I think that's
a very good team guy.
I think that's why we might catch on somewhere.
Yeah, he
simply
could
because of that.
I think so as well. And they just want a little more pass catching ability from that position, and basically that's why they got Cameron Meredith.
To Mandeville and Raymond. Raymond, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. Hey, Raymond.
What do you think about Lamar Jackson?
Oh man, that is a great question. Because I think he's going to be graded in the top 20 on their board. And if he slips, if they're true to their board, it's certainly a possibility. I don't think right away he would be a fit for the Sean Payton offense. Sean Payton has said, I can tailor some things to do it. That's all fine in theory.
Right.
But Sean Payton has never had to do that. From day one as a head coach, he's had a franchise quarterback in his prime. He never developed. He didn't develop Drew Brees.
Right.
He had to call the right plays for Drew Brees.
Yes.
That's all he had to do. So he's never had to do that. And given what I saw with Garrett Grayson, now Garrett Grayson was not up to stuff, we know that. But it almost felt like a week after they drafted Garrett Grayson, Sean Payton was over him. It was it was the oddest thing how hard he was on him. He had zero patience for a kid that really needed some development. So that's what makes me a little bit leery about Lamar Jackson at 27.
Love his moxie.
Love
his athleticism. Obviously, you don't win a Heisman Trophy unless you're if you're not the best player in college football for that year. He has been a super player for Louisville. But you know what? Great arm strength. But he's not accurate. And I'm sorry, you can't play in this offense unless you're accurate. We don't know what the football IQ is. From what we understand, he's got a high football IQ. Can he make decisions on the fly without having to tuck it and running? I mean, there's a lot of questions about Lamar Jackson. And the main thing that I've got, look, everything else, that works for me. You could tailor an offense where he's a little bit more athletic, where you're rolling a guy out, where when things break down, he instead of going through your progressions, he's taking off and running. But you still got to be able to throw the ball accurately in the NFL, and I think that's going to be his biggest problem.
From the pocket.
Agreed. And that's the biggest thing. That's one of the reasons why I like Baker Mayfield. You look at his completion percentage. You look at the ability. He's got the ability to make things happen back there with his legs, but he's a guy that can throw the ball accurately, and I think that's what you need in a quarterback in this offense.
And I just think it's going to be hard for Sean Payton coaching it the exact same way. So successful for the last 11, 12, 13 years, however long it's been, to all of a sudden, now I don't know how much you'd have to tweak, but you're going to have to tweak some, regardless of who's there. So all of a sudden, it's 3rd and 3, this is what I would call with Drew. Now I got to call something completely different. I got to retrain myself to think.
Sure.
It's hard to do. Now, look, that comes with the territory when you lose a veteran quarterback, but it's not something I have to do this year just because Drew will be back at least one more year. So,
well, let me say this, Sean. The second he started gushing about Lamar Jackson, it told me smoke screen. Have you heard him gush about any other quarterback in this draft? Have you heard him gush about Baker Mayfield? He just kind of plays it off. That to me tells me that he's thinking that guy might be around his pick, and he may be able to make a deal if he's going to stay at 27 and ultimately maybe pick up some extra picks. I mean, I don't see it. If the guy could prove to me he was accurate, I'd say get him all day long because he's got everything else you want in a quarterback, everything else you want except for the accuracy. Your latest mock draft, what do you have?
Well, I got a new one coming out in a couple of weeks. It's going to be a little bit of a change, but right now I've still got Dallas Goedert, the tight end out of South Dakota State. He's got a Jimmy Graham skill set, and look, I love Ben Watson, but he's a 37-year-old tight end, so I think he's got 1 year left in the NFL, not just with the Saints. So I think he's a player that can that'll be a nice bridge for a young tight end. So I think Dallas Goedert with his skill set, even if he doesn't start right away, could come in and make an impact. They're going to draft the tight end at some point in this draft, I believe. So that's who I'm going with right now. We'll see how it shakes out. My next mock, I might be pivoting away from that and maybe flip-flop into where they maybe get a tight end in the third round, but we'll see. Still got about another week. I like to do one in February, in March, and right before the draft because I like to kind of see how the visits go, where the kind of the ebb and flow. Because the guy I'm thinking about right now, all of a sudden, is starting to slide a little bit to the 20s. So that's why I'm leaning towards him.
Got a minute left. What positions you think that they'll be looking at hard?
I think they'll go with a cornerback at some point. I think it's a possibility they draft 2 offensive linemen if the picks stay the way they are right now.
I agree with that.
Because Jermon Bushwhack, your backup interior, cannot play center. So I love Will Clapp in that regard. I think they draft 2 offensive linemen, and I still think you can go with a slot receiver as well. And a defensive tackle as well.
Yeah.
So, but again, there aren't any glaring holes. These are all complementary players to build depth and competition on your roster. They beat somebody out, great. If not, hey, you built your roster for depth.
Key.
I tell you what, if he's available at 91, run to the draft board because at that point he's worth the risk. Wouldn't touch him at 27.
How about if they get into the second round? Now, if you get in the second round, it's going to cost you another pick, okay? Probably, unless you trade out of your first round pick. Too high?
I'm on the fence with that.
Yeah, I got to tell you, me
I'm
too.
on the fence.
I got to tell you,
It was the first time I ever talked to him was at LSU's Pro Day. It was a little interesting. He was a little all over the place with the interview, and at that point I was like, okay, I understand what the issue is with him right now. So
I think if he'd have came clean, he'd have been in a much better situation.
And I don't understand this isn't like going from 238 to 255, 238 to 270, and then back to 238, and then to 250, and then back to 240. It's just crazy the weight fluctuations as well.
No doubt about it. Sean, thanks for being with us on Inside New Orleans Sports. Thanks so much for tuning in. Remember, there's a rebroadcast of this program each and every Friday night at 10 o'clock right here on WLAE. We're also on Pelican Sports Television. That's 9 p.m. statewide every Friday night. If you missed any of the previous episodes of Inside New Orleans Sports, catch those at ericasher.com as well. Catch me on the radio weekdays noon to 2 on Sports 1280, 101.1 FM HD2, and the iHeartRadio app, which is a free download for your smartphone or tablet. You can also check us out, listen live, or download the podcast at ericasher.com. And, of course, you can follow me on Twitter at Eric_Asher. Again, special thanks to Sean Fazende from Fox 8 Sports for joining us tonight. Also to the WLAE production staff, including Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, Trey Lopez, Naila Jones, and my director, William Hill. Have a great week. We'll see you right back here next week for another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. Thanks for watching.
Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
Located on Lake Pontchartrain, Brisbee's Lakefront Restaurant and Bar offers traditional West End favorites, a scenic view, oysters, and numerous tasty options. More information is available at 504-304-4125 or brisbeesrestaurant.com.